our guest here today, Sir John Patrick Morgan, and today's episode title is Being Too Honest, Love, and Money.
Hmm.
And
Very up to
just
date
as a
for me. Nice choice. Thanks.
yeah, well, there's a big commonality as to why I chose the being too honest element,
Yeah.
because it's something that I feel you and I have in common. I'll get in that
Mm,
into in about a moment, but just as
mm,
a brief introduction, so
hmm
everyone
hmm
has a little bit of a bio background. John, that's you go by John, is that?
all sorts of things. John, JP, Johnny Pat, Moses. I like having lots of names, so it keeps me present. So that's not like
Yes,
what I am anyway. So
yes,
yeah, pick a mix.
yes. Cool. Well, my brother here, Moses, is a philosopher, father, a creating champion, truth speaker, man of peace, maybe love speaker. Maybe I'll edit that
Mm,
to love
mm,
speaker. He
nice.
lives with his wife and his son, I believe, in
I have two
Hawaii.
now.
Two.
Two
Okay.
sons. Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And he hosts the Creators Circle. And he, as far as I know, has created well over $1 million in coaching, including at least 500K in 1 year.
Mm,
I've been following you for at least a couple of years,
mm,
and I can get into that story at some point with the being too honest element. But first, I really want to express my gratitude, because I was watching your video about love and lying, and I have so much. You represent to me someone in the world. I mean, I've gone through so much failure, bankruptcy, things like
mm.
this in the past. And I look to you as like, here's someone that's doing it. Here's someone that's living it. Here's someone that's, I never met Buddha. I never met Jesus, but you exist. And so I'm,
Jesus.
I'm really deeply
Yeah.
grateful for you,
Yeah.
brother.
Thank you. I mean, when people throw those words around and anywhere near me, I just have to laugh because, it's that I said that to my friend. Like that's one of the problems with branding. Like you put a certain aspect of you being out in the world, and it's not like I'm trying to like hide other aspects, but it always looks better than it is on the outside. So thank you very much. But yeah, I've got probably just as many struggles as you on the day to day. But happy to be here with you. Thanks for that lovely intro.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Man, where to even begin? I know you said you have about 50 minutes. I imagine I could talk to you for far greater than that, and maybe there'll
Mm,
be an opportunity for another podcast or conversation at some
yeah.
point. I'm curious first, why did you agree to talk with me?
Um, I don't know. Well, let me see. I don't have a conscious reason, so I just said yes because like I'm just saying yes when there's that feeling, that sense of love, following the inner compass, right? Um,
Uh-huh.
but if I were to like try to like make up a story about that, one of the things that I thought to say to you that I haven't said to you yet, but probably would have happened at some point, is a couple things. I was reflecting on it. It was like number one, this dude's just cool. He just reminds me of like Owen Wilson, this like the actor, just like
Yeah,
your vibe. It's like yeah, man, everything's cool. It's just like chill. Like we're just here to like just enjoy life. So that's like that just relaxedness. That's just nice to be in the presence of. And so like is a magneticness to your being. So that's probably part of it. Um, just gracious. You seem like you've got your stuff together. It's going to be a good use of time. You have an orientation towards contribution. You're not trying to get something from me. And so whenever I feel that happening in the world, I want to like add to it. Like if there's that fire, like, oh, let me put some wood on that thing. That just feels good to expand that. So yeah, there's some things that seem right and true and loving to me in this moment.
thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
Appreciate what you've said. So I'm just going to riff here, and this is
I
very
love
like
riffing.
free form. Yeah, I mean, I have some things written and stuff, questions and things like that. But yeah, the first thing is meditation. I saw
Mm,
something about the Vipassana on your page, but
mm,
also an attraction to. I'll begin here, and please feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. It doesn't bother me one
Mm,
bit. I was disillusioned with the whole coaching industry when
mm.
I got into it about 5 years ago. I hired some coach, and I'm like, man, what the fuck am I doing? Is this just a get rich quick scheme? And then, I went back to
Mm,
school for psychology, and I went to USM for spiritual psychology to
mhm,
prove myself and to credential myself. And actually, I got into USM because I posted in the coaching jungle. I was like, you got to be a psychologist. You have to prove that you're a do-gooding person in the world.
mm,
And then if I can figure that shit out, then I can actually do whatever this being a philosopher, being
mhm,
and then coaching sort of fits into there. And Chris Doris sent me a message. He was like, dude, I think I can help you out. He served
mm.
me. We talked. He told me about Steve Hardison. I found Steve Chandler. I found all these beings where I'm like,
All
okay,
the
you.
Steves,
And
yeah.
then, yeah, all the Steves.
Yeah.
And my egos, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm one of the Chris's. I'm one of the Chris's now. One of the, and I do this thing where I'm like, I'm self-deprecating,
Mm,
because I mean, all of this, it reminds me so much of this video that you made on lying and love. And my partner, she's working with this a mentor of hers, Melanie Anlier, and Melanie talks all about not showing your dirty laundry. Dude, I'm the
mm.
type of guy who, like,
You literally
I'll
showed your dirty
embarrass my.
laundry 30
That's
seconds into
why.
this call. Yeah.
Exactly, because there's something about that authenticity element.
Mm,
But the reason why the love and lying video that you just posted resonated so much with me is because I'm going through this book, learning from this book, The 48 Laws of Power with
oh yeah.
Robert Greene.
Yeah.
And it's like it's almost hard to read because I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I'm doing this on some level.
Mm,
I'm probably doing it now,
mm. Don't outshine the
and
master.
yeah, right,
Law number
right,
one.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I just watched an interview with Robert Greene and Jordan Peterson last night.
same, yeah,
Oh, you did? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I
yeah.
read Greene's book, like, I don't know, 2009 or something.
Yeah.
And it both turned me on and turned me off. And that was really the entry point for me into like a deeper understanding of the Tao because I was trying to resolve that
Mm-hmm.
contradiction. I was just thinking last night, because I haven't looked at it in, I don't know, what, 10, 12 years. It would be good to revisit it and see it through the eyes that I have a decade later. It would be really interesting. That's kind of why I watched
Mm-hmm.
that interview last night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What? How have you, or have you resolved? Um, One of my marketing teachers, he has a quote. He says, "Speak to one person like you're speaking to 1,000, and speak to 1,000 like you're speaking to one person."
Mm,
That's Saint Francis
lovely.
of Assisi.
Cool.
That's my marketing teacher. One of my marketing teachers,
Yeah, awesome.
and I'm noticing, and I'm just
Mm,
authentically in the moment. I'm like, you're an important person, and other people are going to listen to this, and so
mm,
there's like a slight bit of buzz inside of me
mm,
because I feel that maybe if you and I had a conversation, like if I was visiting Hawaii and I just met you, had
mm,
no idea who you were, maybe I'd be acting very differently. But because I know
mm,
certain things, and then I'm sharing this conversation, and I know
mm.
you do one-on-one work, and I know you do group work. So have you felt sort of like alignment of showing up in your authentic truth, regardless of how many people are watching or listening?
I don't know if certainly have moved along the path towards greater and greater alignment, flow, ease, continuity, like the same here,
Uh-huh.
there, everywhere. I think it's an endless path. Like who I am in the bedroom with my wife is probably a little bit, different than here. There's going to be some gap in difference, and I don't know if it's even
I hope
the
so.
ideal is to yeah, well, I hope so. But I mean, even in like how liberated I might be in expressing the full breadth of what's possible here in this context, like that's appropriate for this context. Still, that even might be some kind of gap. Like there's just if you're not talking about like I'm not taking my clothes off here, but like even my willingness to be
Not
completely
yet.
and free and not yet free and honest and open, it might be like, who knows, but I think like the Now I'm thinking about taking my clothes off because I did say that I would be open to talking about sex. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, closing this gap on just being the same and speaking the same everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I think that has been a conscious desire because I've always had a hard time stomaching gaps in authenticity, which is an extension of my like need for honesty. You know, you saw that video. There was like this
Yeah.
attachment to being honest, which has a strength and a weakness in it. Um, but that quote's so interesting. I never heard that quote before. But one of the things I've always said to people about public speaking is like just speak to one person in the room and have that be like the only thing that matters to you. And it's like you can hear that intellectually and not really like get access to it. So it's like for me, Fred Rogers kind of articulated it well, and he talked about how he looks into the camera and he considered the space between him and the camera sacred ground, and he's speaking to the child that's watching the TV, and it's like it's really creating this imagined experience that it's me and the person, me and the child. And the camera lens is sometimes easier to create that imagined experience than an audience because it's a little bit either way, there's not a child there, there's a camera, and there's not one person there, there's an audience. And so you have to create you have to lie to yourself essentially. You have to create a distortion of what's out there through the actual meaning and the reality you're creating on the inside. But when you do that, it liberates you from those fearful thoughts and it allows you to just be in love with that one person. And so when I look into a camera lens, I can be looking at the camera and speaking to it, or I can be looking through the camera in my mind's eye to the idea of that I hold of another person who's just searched YouTube for, geez, how do I make money as a coach? Because like I'm waking up in the morning with fear in my belly, my heart's shrieking, my partner's like, I think you should go back and get a job. And it's like, and it's like, I just want, and I try to look through that camera and have my heart break for this person that I'm imagining on the other side. And then as soon as my heart breaks, the camera dissolves and I'm with them and I can speak to them. And that's how, by being with one person, I can create an impact on many. Is because they all have those hearts that I'm connected to in that moment. And the other side of Assisi's quote, which is interesting, speak to 1,000 people if there's one, is what I just said, but speak to one as if there are 1,000. I don't know what he means by that, but one thing that jumps into me is just like, it's that quote of like, don't say anything that you wouldn't want written on a newspaper, or don't do anything that you wouldn't want printed in the press. So it's like, for me, don't show up with you in some way that I would only want to happen in private, that I would be ashamed of, or isn't true for me if it's out there, right? So like this, like the force of the whole world's brought to this conversation. Like when somebody's sharing something with me in private and they're like, I don't know how to talk to this person about it. It's like, well, just say the same thing. So if you can say it with me, say it with them, that kind of thing. So I find that really inspiring, and thank you for sharing it with me. I like the two sides of the same, how it's an inversion. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm thinking about now, with what you just said, and especially because you mentioned how your father's a police officer and this attachment
Mm.
to telling the truth, and it sounded to
Mm-hmm.
me like you came to somewhat of a resolution of like being loving.
Oh,
Like that's
yeah.
the
It's more
litmus
important.
sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get
Yeah.
that for so long. I thought being honest was how I got love, and I just didn't see it. It wasn't clear. And it's such a great example of how like an insight can shift. It's like a paradigm shift for you. That was a paradigm shifting insight for me. Like to have love be primary and honesty to sometimes, most of the time, be in service of that, but not all the time. I mean, yesterday I lied to my son. We have chickens that we have on our farm, and there's wild chickens in Maui, and they've gotten into the farm area and they're eating the food and they're not laying eggs and they won't stay in the penned area, so I can't make them part of the farm, so we got to get rid of them. And I looked it up. You have to supposed to kill them basically, but I was like, I'll trap and release them somewhere else. And my son was like heartbroken. He's like, he when I trapped him, he's like, he just started crying, and he's like, I have a place for these chickens in my heart. And it's like,
Mm.
and it's just, I don't, I tried to tell him the truth. And then it was like, you know what? I just have to bend it a little bit. And then when he went off, and I drove him down the hill and released them like a mile from here. And then I brought the trap back and he didn't see. And I told him, hey, Yeah, I just let them out. They ran off. I don't know where they went. And it's not the absolute truth. It's a little off. And that would have been a lot harder for me a long time ago, but I know now that it's the most compassionate thing to do for what he's able to stomach and understand. And the truth will get, over time, I'll be able to give him a more accurate representation of what I'm saying, what I'm believing the truth is.
Uh-huh.
But I'm letting love be the primary thing now, and it's giving me more freedom, and it's giving me more ability to be loving in all its forms, not just to get what I want, like desire form, but like to be compassionate, right? Um,
That wasn't quite accurate to him because you actually killed the chickens. Is that
no, I didn't kill them. I trapped them and released them a couple miles down the road. But
okay?
I told him that I released them on our land, so he's thinking
I
they'll
see.
probably be back. They kind of free range around and come back at feeding time. And so, but they're probably not going to come back now because I drove them 2 miles. I mean, I don't think they've
Uh-huh.
got. Well, if they do, I'll let you know. But that would be impressive. But yeah,
If maybe if they have an attachment to truth and
yeah,
they admire you for that, then
yeah,
they'll find
and
their way.
GPS, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, have you had the experience of being too honest? Which I think we, to some extent, have defined that. Where then I'll give an example. I'm doing a comedy show tonight. It's
Awesome,
called
cool.
Mad Conscious. Yeah, I'm really excited for it, and it's like a tragic love story, but it's all improv. We don't have it planned out or anything. We're going to go
Awesome.
to some triggering places, but
Mm-hmm.
the idea is love and
Mm-hmm.
for people to walk away with some things to think about. Because I live in Costa Rica here. It's I would say somewhat of what people would consider like there's a lot of spiritual community, and
Sure.
as I'm in this community and I see like the political correctness, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
get tired of it in a way. And it's just like,
Mm.
I have the idea of doing a people pleasers anonymous where it wouldn't be anonymous. Anyhow, all
Wow.
of this to say, like, I'll do these things or I'll say something. And I don't want to speak that as though this is happening. However, it has happened. And God knows I might do it right now with you.
Mm.
Who knows? Which is I'll say something or I'll do something. And then later I'll be thinking about what people, I'll be basically taking myself outside of myself and then feeling
Mm.
shame because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I can't believe I like, yeah, I did that and it was true or it was
Mm-hmm.
right. And then
Mm-hmm.
later
Mm-hmm.
I feel shame because yeah, maybe it was courageous, but I just made a fool out of my, and I don't actually feel good
Mm-hmm.
about it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. And
Mm.
I'm wondering if you've had similar experiences.
I have. For me, I don't look at that as a place where it's a little bit different than like a place where I may have held back from speaking that because I was living under the duress of I need to be honest. That is usually what you're talking about. Reminds me of what I think Brene Brown calls it the vulnerability hangover. Have you heard that term before? It's like
I
you're
can intuit what
yeah,
it
you can
is.
make sense of it, right? It's like you
Yeah.
be vulnerable, and then the next day you're like, oh, you're like feel like pukey afterwards, and so I
Uh,
get that plenty of times. Um, but for me, that's a good sign that I leaned into my edge. I've kind of learned to be like, yep, just gotta, you know, be with it right now. So feel through it. Um, but I think maybe what you're inquiring about also is just about like, have I ever been too honest in a way that after the fact, I'm not sure that that was actually the best move. Um, not because I've got a vulnerability hangover, but just looking at it. And I think yes. I mean, I think maybe I gave some examples in the video you saw or not, but like you know certainly with my son, like being honest about the way the world is hasn't been the most loving thing sometimes. And so it wasn't a vulnerability hangover, it was more like an oops, I was putting honesty above love. And also just the way I was meeting the world in the pandemic and the imposition of rules and ideas about what must be to make you a good person, and either following the rules or not following the rules as a form of resistance was like just this dichotomy that I was stuck in, and saying, you know what, I'm going to create my own path here that's like that's transcendent of these dichotomies. um, Came from well, and I think it came from maybe that's not like being too honest, but it's just messy. Like once I guess that's why I'm like kind of reaching right now. It's like sometimes in order to find your transcendent position and create another option, you have to just blatantly break the rule to even set yourself free. So like one of the things with the mask policy in Hawaii was like ridiculously beyond what any other state was doing. The CDC ranked like Hawaii as low, not even medium. Like low and medium, you don't need a mask. We were ranked low, and the governor was like, "We're going to keep our masks on until the 25th of March," and everybody was like, just following the rules. And like even the CDC got there's like almost zero COVID in Hawaii, but it's like after 2 years of like this like badge of honor for mask wearing in Hawaii, and it's been a part of the thing maybe that's contributed to us having a very low COVID here. But it was at this point where like not only does the CD say you don't need them now, the governor has said we will stop wearing them like this point in the future where you're not going to have to wear them anymore. And I'm over here like everybody's just wearing them because they're following the rules. And so instead of just doing it, I decided to stop doing it, and we'll go into stores and and I brought my mask in my pocket because this is my both and. I have I don't know where it is now, but my mask has my smiling face printed on it. So I put it on and you can still see my face smiling. And I carry it in my pocket, and I was just like, I'm just not going to wear it, even though the sign says to, until somebody asks me to put it on, and then I'll just put it on. No big deal. And it was like living in the Matrix. I mean, I went in Target and everybody was wearing their mask for a half an hour, like 100 people, nobody said anything to me. They just looked at me like the spoon was just bending or something. It was like, what is, it was bizarre. And then there were other places where they wouldn't let me in unless I was wearing it. So I just put it on, but it was like, there's just different cultures. And I just flew on a plane recently. Well, their mask policy is still in effect because the FAA hasn't changed their policy. I didn't wear a mask all the way through the airport, like onto the plane, and same thing. It's like everybody's wearing them, everybody's following the rules, and nobody's even saying anything to me. It's like
even on the plane.
Even on the plane, up until one point, a woman walked by while she was doing the seatbelts, and she did this. They kind of like where you've got to put your tray table up, but they don't even watch to see if you do it. She's like, you need to wear your mask the whole flight, and then she just left. And so I was like, okay. And then I just put it down. And then that was it. And she walked by. Nobody else said anything to me the whole way at the airport when I got there.
It's no longer a federal crime then, because I wasn't wearing a mask on a plane and I was threatened to get thrown off the plane.
Well, but this is my point. It still is a federal crime, probably. But not everybody's buying into it such that they're going to be a police for it. But they're still buying into it enough to do it themselves. So it's this weird kind of middle ground. And I'm sure if I took a flight from here to London, it might be different. This is an island hop, small plane, 100 people on it from Maui to Oahu.
Okay.
And I'm not even saying it's the right thing. As far as the law goes, I did what's called the wrong thing. And I'm doing it just until somebody asks me to do otherwise. And I'm not going to fight it. I'm just exploring, like, what is it like to just not follow the rules? Not from a position of I must fight, but from a position of exploration as to what is the energy of the boundary. And so like when I was saying it was kind of messy, it's like I'm in this place of just exploring what it's like. Right? Just exploring what it's like and not with this aggressive fighting nature, but just as an inquiry. I was just had a friend of mine, a former client, like dialoguing on my Facebook. I posted something, that video that you saw, and he was like trying to debate with me, and he was like, maybe we should like do a call and do a debate. And I was like, I don't have anything to stand for in this. I don't even have a disagreement. I just like maybe my thing is I'm just so agreeable, but it's like when you come from exploration and inquiry and experimentation, and there's nothing you're fighting for. I guess that's where I am now in all of this stuff. Like, I'm not trying to figure out what the truth is even. I'm just kind of just exploring, I guess would be the best word. It's a bit of a tangent, but there you go.
A friend, well, not I can't call him a friend, sort of a teacher that I know.
You could call him a friend.
I could call him a friend. I don't know if he
might turn into a friend if you started saying it all the time.
That's right. Yeah. So a friend of mine. He is a friend of mine. I don't know if I'm a friend of his. He was going at the beginning of the pandemic. He was walking into stores not wearing a mask, and people would say like, you have to wear a mask, and he says okay, and he takes his mask out and he puts it around his ears over the top of his head, and
Mm-hmm.
then they would like question him, and he would say, well, I identify as a dolphin, so I have a blowhole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's a bit edgy, right? And that
Well,
could
that's the thing. It's
sometimes.
like, and it all comes down to the individual person, and there's no right or wrong. Like that, you
Mhm.
know, there's nobody's going to determine. I love the creativity, and it's like, I, I prioritize a loving heart and loving kindness.
Yeah.
So that's my personal value set and order of priority. And so, like, if somebody's afraid, and I can set them at ease by covering my mouth and my
Hmm.
face with the thinnest possible fabric in the world that I can drink through a straw through, and that, but they feel better, then I'm going to do it because it's like no big deal to me to create peace in that person. And
uh
so that's why I would carry it in my pocket, and as soon as somebody asked, I'd put it on. Um, but I just found it so amazing that so few people even cared, but they still did it themselves. And so it's just this, you know, interesting place we're in.
I'm wondering when or if we'll see someone with a mask tattooed on there, just a mask tattoo.
Oh God. It might already exist. Yeah. Just
Oh
Google
yeah,
image
yeah,
search mask
Google,
tattoo.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so we have about 20 minutes or so, give or take,
Cool.
probably a little less. And I want to respect your time.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, yeah, I wanted to tell a brief story that I sort of began with, and then riff with you on maybe some
Mm.
of what your experiences are with money and love and
Mm-hmm.
truth
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
specifically. Um, and and I think you'll appreciate this. I mean, I've shared this in a couple different places, but I doubt that you've heard it. It should have been illegal, but I went to a third party credit lending. Uh, so like you give them all your credit card information, and then
Mm-hmm.
they get you approved for the highest amounts of credit that you can get approved for, and it was something close to like
Cool.
$50,000. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I talked to Chris Doris, and then I thought to myself when I was really committed to work with him, I'm like, okay, what's the
Mm-hmm.
fastest way I can do this? And even part of that, I'm aware, came from this thing, which I'm deeply curious what your experience with this is. I was in large part doing this to prove to myself that I was qualified. And I remember sitting there with Chris in his office, and he was asking me like, why, why do you want to work with me? Why? And I'm like, to prove to myself that I can. And he's like, no, dude, we're not going to do anything from proving. But anyhow, and he said like, I understood his hesitancy with me to greater or lesser degrees, because apparently he hadn't worked with someone like me who uh, no one has ever purchased his coaching on credit in the way that I did.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like, this is the fastest way that I can do this thing. And
Sure.
it was some scarcity stuff kind of wrapped into this. And I'm working with him for 8 months,
Wow.
his 8 month agreement. And halfway through, bro, I just was experiencing so much shame and blame and guilt. I was bankrupt, living in my parents' basement, going through a separation from my previous partner. I'm like a spiritual life coach. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm the one that needs the coaching. And
Mm-hmm.
I ghosted on him, man. I ghosted. I just stopped
Wow.
talking to him. Like it just, and he sent me a few messages. And it was like almost a year later where I was driving. I was working on my friend's. He owned one of those Herbalife smoothie shops, and I was like slinging smoothies for like $1 or two per smoothie,
Mm-hmm.
still coaching people and just sharing truth and things that I'm passionate about. But at the end of the day, I'm like making 50, $60 after
Mm.
for 13 hours. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I used to make thousands of dollars sharing what I'm passionate about. And now I'm doing this. And now I'm back to school. I went back to school for psychology like 2 or 3 times to prove to myself that what I was doing
Mm.
here was. Anyhow, it got to a point where I was driving one day and I was just feeling so much love. I was falling in love, rising in love with my fiance right now. And I just
Oh,
wanted to call
congratulations.
Chris and let him know. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I wanted to call Chris and be like, bro, I get it. Like I get what you were talking
Yeah.
about like just serving. And like as a result of me getting back in my heart, this is like when I started writing my poetry, when I
Oh, cool.
3 or so years ago, and that resulted in the book that I shared with you. And anyhow, I just wanted to let the guy know, like, I get it. And I didn't want a thing from him. And I had already filed a bankruptcy at this point in time. And he messages me back. He's like, I'm getting a CK vibe from this. Is this, he's like, I got a new phone. He's like, it's really interesting that you're contacting me right now because I have a check for $10,000 with your name on it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? Like, this is incredible. And I talked to him, and he basically said to me, he's like, I've never given a refund to anyone, but these circumstances were different, and we could do one of two things. I have a check for it actually ended up to being a little under $15,000, which for me at that point in time, that was
Yeah, it's
a
a chunk.
significant, yeah, a chunk, and it's all money in the bank because I already filed the
Yeah,
bankruptcy.
yeah.
And dude, it's so funny because I invested in him so that
Mm-hmm.
he could help me get clients or whatever it was
Mm-hmm.
that I was thinking, and truly, I invested in myself. So he said, you could one of two options. You could either get the 15K back, I'll wire transfer it, or we'll pick up right where we left off. And
Mm.
I was like, I'll take the 15K, please, Mr. Torres.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's just kind of a interesting story on
That's sweet.
investing in
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. What a good story. What a great, acknowledgement of Chris too. With guy's a beautiful man. A really awesome, awesome guy. So cool that you got the Chris's.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Hmm. What's in that? What's the essence of that story for you that gives you when you tell it, when you share it? What is the being in it that you are inspired to contribute to the world?
I got so lost in
Mm-hmm.
making money and
Mm.
selling this image. And
Mm.
around that time, man, I would drive to Barnes and Noble after work, after working at this smoothie shop, and I would just go over to the spirituality and the philosophy section. I'd just start reading. I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm.
oh yeah. This and that's not who I am, but these are the things that make me come alive. And I
Mm.
just started writing like a fucking madman, and then the service element. It was just connected to like being something like being fully in whatever I'm doing, and then totally unattached to the
Mm.
outcome as
Mm.
well. And like that was the key. And I think maybe you spoke to it when I sent you a message to interview you
Yeah.
for this. It's like I wasn't, but man, that getting energy, it
Mm.
has been in
Mm-hmm.
the past, and probably sometimes now. It's like
Yeah.
it's this thing inside me, the grasping, the hungry ghost or whatever it is.
Mm.
Uh,
It's in
yeah,
everyone.
just
It's in everyone. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's so interesting. I mean, that has been helping people to let that go has been really my orientation since I started as a coach. Not because I knew that was the philosophy or that was the thing, but it just became obvious for me when I got into coaching as a performance magician, like doing card tricks and stuff,
Oh,
and then and that led me to the psychology of the mind and how you could not just use your language and communication to create an entertaining experience, but to help people be more effective and to enjoy their life more. And then shortly after I started just being a life coach through that, I took the advice of marketers and found a niche. And the niche I found was basically like a lot of the magicians I hung out with were like a little awkward around women and dating. And so I just started helping guys to engage with women and connect with women. And I was working with women as well, but then I ended up focusing more with men. And it just became, I mean, I didn't like have conscious understanding about like how to be with women. I just like listen to them and be like, well, how do I do this? How do what? And it just became clear to me that like the through line of all of them, the challenge that all of them were facing was the orientation of trying to get something from a woman, whether it was sex or approval. And it was
uh-huh,
like,
uh-huh.
I just knew in my heart that like that way of being with women was not useful. It just didn't work. And so through being with them, context, situation over, I started to get became conscious of an orientation of contribution and giving. And then through doing that work, I was invited to do a TEDx talk on that. So I have a TEDx talk from like 10, 11 years ago about this concept of taking, trading, and giving. And it's not about our actions, it's about our intent. Is our intent to get something, or is our intent to give something, or is our intent kind of muddled? I do want it because we can have dual intentions, but it's like, yeah, I want to give and I want to get something. And it's like, that's where a lot of us get stuck. We're in this kind of this dichotomy of intent. And it's like only when we go all in with just like total contribution in a particular moment that we're entirely free and we can be our best and most charismatic self. And so it sounds like that realization is what you're inspired by and sharing. And, you know, I get that from your message as well. There's so much freedom in saying, fuck it, I'm just going to give, you know, even if I'm bankrupt, I'm just going to give. The total sacrifice is a beautiful thing.
What's there to lose at that point?
Exactly.
But you're pointing, that was the key thing too. That was the key thing too, brother. I'm sitting in my parents' basement, like meditating for hours and writing poetry. And I'm like, I'm still committed to this. And I have apparently less than nothing. And I'm like, oh, so really I can be this way no matter what my bank account
It's
says.
awesome, isn't it?
Fuck.
You're unsinkable
Yeah.
now. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I have a whole lesson in our one of our programs where I talk about my whole story with debt, and I'll just give you like a brief snapshot of it now, if interested, because it's like along the same lines as you.
Yeah,
I was so
absolutely.
liberated by like taking on loads of debt and not being able to pay it back, and finding out that nothing bad was going to happen. Like nothing bad happened. I mean, I was so scared, and then I stopped paying, and then I didn't lose the house. Nobody like, I mean, like my phone rang, but that was it. Like the phone rings. It's like that's
Yeah.
actually the worst thing that could ever happen. I mean, I don't know if other worse things could happen, but you know, a lot of money I walked away from, and then nothing bad happened, and it's like, wait a minute. And the whole matrix, and again, it was like walking through the matrix, like the spoon bending, right? It was like, whoa. And I started to look at and then I could see the whole system that I was trying to do the right thing and be, you know, it's like, where did this money come from that all these banks gave me? Oh, it was created through fractional reserve banking. What is that? Oh, it's where banks are allowed to essentially print money. And if you don't pay it, they just delete it. So they create it and they destroy it. And so how do they make sure that you pay? Well, they created a game called the Fico System, and everybody's got a score. And they created a context, an idea that, you know, credit is character. And if you have a good credit score, you're a good person. And people buy into it. And it's an agreement. They make the money and they give you a score. And if you pay them back, you've got a high score and you're lovable. And if you don't, you're not. And if you don't pay it, they just delete it. And then they create some more and give it to somebody else. Or they create some more in a couple months and they give it to you again, give you another go. And it's just this whole game. And I now distinguish borrowing money from a bank that creates it out of thin air and borrowing money from a person who's worked for it, and that is actually an indicator of the service that they've given and the energy they've put out. You know, banks don't use energy to create money, but people do. And so what am I committing to? Am I committing to the transfer of energy? Am I committing to the mimetic production? And if banks can create money, then I can destroy it. That's the position that I took. Right? I'll just play the game. And my friend pointed this out to me too with mortgages. He's like, you know what's so cool about real estate investing is you can buy a house, and if you don't want it anymore, you can just give it back. And they put it in the contract. I mean, that's what a mortgage actually
Right.
is.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you could return it at any time. You have a 30-year return policy. I mean,
Yeah. Like, oh, I love that. That's
it's just
interesting.
that when you look at it, that's what it actually is. And the way people don't feel that way about it because of the idea that you're a bad person if you don't pay back, which is part of the game. If they didn't have that, then people would just take the money and run. So it's like, and now I play the credit game and I play it well. I borrow money, I pay it back. I borrow money, I pay it back. I've got a great score. But it's a different experience than it was before because I'm like you, like I know that I can't be broken. You can't sink me. I am not that.
So one more question. Well, two more
Yeah.
if we have time for it.
Cool.
And this was what actually initially inspired me to message you, because I have this unprogram called Living Truth, funny
Mm.
enough. And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about my next creation, and I was thinking of doing something like Creators Circle, something that
Mm-hmm.
that you have. And I'm like, man, I'm deeply inspired by this person. I want to talk to them about how you have created, not maybe how is the wrong question, but it's something around, I've had active resistance to coaching coaches.
Mm.
And yet I've coached coaches or
Mm.
people who are in the service world. And there's like this huge part of me that's sort of like, well, if that's what's being like, am I going for that? Because that could be seen as a low-hanging fruit. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of positioning myself around that. Or is that just where, like, if these are the people that are showing up, then that's,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not a clear alignment in myself with what it appears to me like there's an alignment in the ads. Like I've seen you're running ads saying like, I've never done
Mm.
this
I was, yeah.
before.
Mm.
Okay, you were. And so, yeah, I'm just wondering what, if you could speak to that
Mm.
feeling authentic, and then what could look like selling, or
Yeah.
providing service to a lot of people that provide services, and how you feel
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
authentic with that.
Sure. I mean, I can totally relate. I was in a similar place 8, 9 years ago, or 10, I don't know how long ago, but like when I started as a coach, I didn't coach coaches, and then coaches wanted to work with me because I had clients in a functioning business, and that was like interesting to them, and I was saying no, and I don't coach. It became like a thing, but then I noticed there was a point where I was like, this was unfolding, and I was resisting it, and that was, okay, something's going on here, and so
Uh-huh.
I started saying yes, and I still had that same resistance, but I was doing it because the money was there and it was easy, right? And
Yeah.
so I still had to integrate it, but I didn't integrate it before. I took the money first, and then I integrated it. And then when I looked at it, what I saw was a couple things. Number one, I saw, am I just building this pyramid scheme of coaching, coaching coaches, coaching coaches, coaches, coaching coaches, right? And also, if I'm only coaching coaches, or if I'm coaching coaches, does that mean I'm not a good enough coach to coach real people? And so it was a lot of like pride and shame. It was like, oh, I'm not, if I'm just helping them, then it's too easy, right? And so like, I mean, it's that I'm
Imposter
not actually
syndrome
like,
too, I
yeah,
imagine.
exactly, imposter, like, well, not an imposter to coach the coaches, but an imposter to call myself a coach if my only clients were coaches. Because are you really a
Uh-huh.
coach if you're only coaching coaches? Like regular people don't want to work with you. Um, so, oh, the thing that, so I'll talk about them in order. I resolved the pyramid thing by being like, what if that's an awesome thing to build a coaching pyramid? Because what if coaching is the evolution of consciousness, and that the more people that we enroll in that possibility and are doing that, the better? And what if instead of pretending that it's not happening or being against it, being like, yeah, I'm for it. It's not like I'm doing some kind of like pyramid scheme model where I'm making money and like it's all from everybody and it's flowing up. I mean, it's not like that. But
Right.
like just being
Yeah,
like, yes,
exactly.
I want
Yeah.
to coach coaches, and I would like you guys to coach coaches, and for them to coach coaches too, because the more of this, the better. And the thing that really helped me get access to that distinction was the Harvard psychologist Robert Keegan did a talk on the further reaches of adult development at the RSA in London. You can find it on online, and he talked about this, that adults continue to develop throughout their lives, and that they're seeing that over time, adults are developing into these higher levels of consciousness more and more. And he posited the theory that maybe psychological development advances as we evolve. And that's why we're living longer, so that we can evolve our consciousness to a higher level throughout our life, so that we can navigate the complexity that's emerging in the world. And he said, if that's the case, then the psychologists, the coaches, the therapists, the people who are helping humanity to evolve their consciousness, they are on the front lines of our evolution. And that's the most important work in the world. And I was like, fuck yeah, man. Like maybe building an army of coaches is the best thing, the greatest gift we can give to the world. And so that helped me with that aspect of it.
Mm.
And then the other piece was just like, and this is something that's very present for me right now. I'm using this word coaching to just represent the development of a capacity to be in dialogue with yourself and others in a way that creates more freedom, love, and power. That's my version of it, right? That's my version of what
Real
coaching
life
is.
philosopher.
Yeah,
That's
like
what I
that's just
hear.
it.
Yeah.
Just real,
Yeah.
like real world. Like maybe the coaches
Yeah.
are the philosophers of the 21st century, maybe,
Uh-huh.
right? Like it's that. That's what it is. And so if that's the case, then I'll work with anybody. And if they all want to call it coaching, let them. If they all want to call it I'm an entrepreneur, like whatever. As just human beings evolving their capacity to create in dialogue with themselves and others. That's the essence of it. And actually, right now, I'm just in the midst of moving my body of work out of me and into a brand that represents my whole team, calling it just one word, creating. All the
Mm.
coaching programs, all the stuff is moving into that. And we're going to use the term creating dialogue. You could call it coaching. We're going to call it creating dialogue. It's just another name, another label for the power of dialogue. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to take a stab at saying this is more than just something that you can do to help people get results. This is a way of being with yourself and with the world that can help you and everybody to create more. So it's like, for me, I see it. I was doing this and in love with it before I discovered coaching, and
Yeah.
I've taken it into coaching, and so I'm just creating a way to expand it beyond that for me and the team.
Brilliant. I love that. The redefining or just fitting it into what feels
Mm.
most natural and true to what
I hope
we're
that
doing, engaging in even
Yeah, I
right
hope that
now.
breaks the dam for you, man. And all these people that want to work with you that are coaches, you just start saying
It
yes.
did. Dam is
Good.
broken.
Awesome, awesome, cool.
Brother, thank you so much for your time. The last thing you might have spoke to it just now, and I'll put your links in the bio, but where
Mm.
can people find you if they want to connect more with you, see what's going
Yeah.
on?
My current website is jpmorganjr.com. Pretty soon that's going to forward to our new website, but if you've got that, you'll be able to get there in a couple weeks' time. And that's also my personal like username, JP Morgan Jr. on Facebook, so Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. So you can find me everywhere.
All right, man. Well, the all the links will be in the show notes, and yeah, I wanted to talk about alternative currency and lots of other things, but maybe
Cool.
another
Maybe
time.
another
And
time. Yeah.
yeah, really, really grateful for your
Thank
time,
you.
brother. Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank you
Christopher.
for
Much love
being
to
who you
you.
are.
You're
Yeah,
welcome. Thanks for
likewise.
being here. All right.
Okay.
Bye
Peace.
bye.